Hello, so sound should be working on that. Morning, everyone. I have got some questions that I'm going to go over from people on Instagram who sent me a few messages and people on email as well. So currently I've got 5 main questions and then a few little ones. So I'll just run through them at my own pace. Starting off, we've got one about knee pain. So this is from email. Got a sore knee last week after running. Currently training for a half marathon in 12 weeks. Have no idea where to start with the knee pain. So the first thing to identify would be to make sure and rule out anything serious. So I would probably go see someone in person and make sure that you haven't like ruptured your ACL or done any like serious damage to your meniscus, which is just the cartilage in your knee. And another kind of way you can make sure it's not that is your symptoms. So if your knee pain is progressively getting worse and you've got loads of swelling around the knee and it's waking you up at night and the pain is getting worse and worse as well, then it's more likely something serious. But if the knee pain is just related to your running, so when you do more running, your knee pain increases. When you do less running, your knee pain decreases. And it's only related to that activity. So outside of running, it's not particularly sore. Then it's less serious and it's more likely just an overuse issue. So I see a lot of issues with runners and knee pain because people tend to increase their volume too much week to week. And that's one of the main like big things that you can change to fix it. So what I would do is if I was running, let's say 10K week one, so I split that into 2 runs, 2 5K runs. And then on week 2, I would increase my total volume by no more than 10%. So if you do 10% of 10K, you get whatever you get, and then you increase it by that the following week. You don't want to go above 10% because essentially that volume increase is too high and your body needs a little bit of time to adapt, and especially the muscles, tendons, ligaments around your knee. So that would be the first thing I would do, is decrease the amount of running you're doing and get it to where your knee pain is manageable and it's a lot less painful. The other thing I would question is, are you doing any strength training outside of running? So are you doing any leg training? Are you doing any things for your quads, hamstrings, things like that? And if I was training for a half marathon, I would do a minimum of 2 to 3 sessions a week in the gym. And I pretty much make those all lower body. How I would structure those if I had knee pain initially is working around it before you see someone. So if you can still do leg exercises that don't irritate your knee pain, that's a great place to start. For example, if a back squat or a deep squat is causing a lot of issues, then you could jump onto a leg extension machine, for example. That works well for a lot of people. And people can do that movement with minimal to no pain and still build some quad strength. Same thing with things like RDLs or any other big compound movements. If they're causing knee pain, then you can just jump onto a machine and do a hamstring curl, for example, or from an RDL, you could do something a little bit easier, like a hip thrust from the floor, just any variation where you can still train the major muscle groups in your legs. So your quads, hamstrings, calves, and then also your adductors, which are on the inside of your hips, your groin muscles, and the abductors on the outside of your hip. And I would have 2 days where you're going slightly heavier and it's more weight focused. And then once the knee pain starts to decrease further, I would also have another day where you're doing a lot more plyometrics, which is just jumping and bounding, because obviously you're doing a lot of that with running, and having a session for plyometrics will really help you in terms of improving your running economy. So you'll run more efficiently, you'll run faster, and you'll also be less prone to injuries. But I wouldn't introduce the plyometrics straight away. I'd first build up a base level of strength, doing exercises that you can manage with minimal to no knee pain. Another thing you can incorporate, if you know what I'm talking about, because I can't get the exercises up here, is implementing some isometrics. So an isometric is just an exercise where you're holding one position for a long period of time. So one of the best places to start with knee pain is the foam roller bridge. I go on about this all the time on my Instagram. I have got some videos on YouTube. If you're interested, just find the knee pain one, it'll be on there. So you get a foam roller, you lie on your back, you have both of your feet flat on the foam roller, knee slightly bent, and then you literally just, a little bit like a glute bridge, but you don't go very high. You lift your hips about half an inch off the floor, and this will get your hamstrings and calves working really hard. And it will also desensitize the area around your knee. You could do 2 or 3 sets of a 30 to 60 second hold on a double leg. And then after you've done that, you could attempt a single leg wall sit, which is another great isometric for your knee. So this is a lot more simple to set up. If you know what wall sit is, you just back against the wall, and then your legs come out in front of you at about a 90-degree angle. And if you hold it on a double leg, your quads will be working hard. You're simply just going to take one leg off, so all the stress is on one side. And if your knee pain is quite irritable, you just start higher up the wall, so you've got less knee bend. And then as you get more comfortable, as you get stronger, you move further down the wall, so you've got a great amount of knee bend. And again, I would do 2 to 3 sets of anywhere from 30 to 45 seconds, and you could do those before your main session. It's going to desensitize the knee and allow you to bend it a lot more comfortably. So they're the main things that I would focus on with knee pain. Obviously, assuming you're doing all the basics and sleeping well, eating well, hydrating well, and you're not doing a lot of other training. So you're not overtraining in terms of doing like a million, I don't know, high rocks or CrossFit sessions a week on top of the running and on top of strength sessions. Next question I've got is about shoulder pain. So I'm a CrossFitter struggling with shoulder pain from kipping pull-ups. Tried stretching and a bit of taping, not getting much success as the pain just keeps coming back every time I jump back on the rig. So this is a really common one with CrossFitters because during a kipping pull-up, which essentially is just a normal pull-up with a little bit more of a kip through your hips and through your legs, so there's a lot more force going through your shoulder. And that's the reason that a lot of people get shoulder pain with this. So the first thing you need to do is identify what is the limiting factor. More than likely, it's because you're weak at your shoulders. I've done another YouTube video, any of the shoulder pain ones, where I've got some shoulder kind of strength tests that you can use and implement. You can do those, and then you can very quickly and clearly see what's weak. Is it your pressing muscles that are weak? Is it your pulling muscles that are weak? Is it smaller muscles inside the shoulder, your rotator cuff, that are weak? And then once you know that, then you can go, oh, well, how do I improve those individual things? That's the first thing. The second thing is, are you mobile enough to do kipping pull-ups? So can you get your arms overhead and your head through in a comfortable position? I currently can't because I'm doing a lot of jiu-jitsu, but if you're a CrossFitter or a weightlifter, you should be able to get into a comfortable overhead position just hanging on the bar. Another thing similar to the running is, how quickly have you started CrossFit? Have you been doing it for a long period of time? Because you build up a capacity to things like kipping pull-ups. So again, have you increased volume massively from week to week? And if you have, decrease the volume, back off how many kipping pull-ups you're doing. If even one kipping pull-up is really irritating your shoulder, then obviously stop doing them for now. But if you're only getting shoulder pain after maybe 10 or 20, then instead of 10 or 20 in a set or as part of a workout, just decrease that amount by 25% maybe. Another thing with shoulder pain is looking at some kind of key mobility sites. So a lot of people with shoulder pain have got a very stiff spine, and especially CrossFitters, because everything in CrossFit, all the movements are up and down. You don't get any movements where you're rotating or you're moving side to side. So what I like to do with a lot of people, a lot of CrossFitters with shoulder pain, is just get the spine moving. So a nice spine mobility sequence you can do is get a PVC pipe or a wooden stick in that back rack position. And then all you're going to do, starting from a tall kneeling position, is you're going to do some rotations like that, 10 each side. Then you're going to do some side bends like that, 10 each side. Then I would go into a half kneeling position and repeat this, and then a standing position, repeat this. That's really, really nice. Another thing that's very underrated, if you have access to it, is like a light med ball. So 1 to 2 kilos that bounces, and you can do some light throws and slams where you're throwing into the wall like this, you're rotating overhead like this, you're just getting your back and spine loose and moving, which is really underrated and important for shoulder pain. Another key area you could focus on is getting the rib cage moving and improving your breathing. A lot of people with shoulder pain are quite compressed at their back. And what I mean by that is they walk around with their shoulders down and back all the time. And you actually need to learn to round and relax through your shoulders and create some space between your shoulder blades. So breathing on your back can be a really easy way to do this. You just lie on your back. You'd have your palms facing up towards the ceiling. Then as you're breathing, you're just trying to bring your shoulder blades further and further apart from each other and create more and more, think of like an old granny, like hunchback type position in your mid and upper back. That's what you want to create. And that's also really, really helpful. Hopefully that answers that question in enough detail. Next one, back pain. Tweaked my back, bending over to pick something up. I'm fairly active and look after a caravan site and a small holding. Do I need to get a stronger core? Okay. So this was from actually an in-person client I saw this week. So the first thing you want to look at is why you've tweaked your back in the first place. So more than likely, it's not the activity that set it off that's the real cause of your back pain. So in this case, he's bent over to pick something up, his back's gone, and then he's thought, oh, this is the cause of my back pain. I did a reel about this yesterday on Instagram. You need to look at the other factors in your life and things that have happened before that. For example, poor sleep and nutrition is like a really big culprit. A lot of people just aren't sleeping enough and they're not eating that well either. So if you're not doing those two things, that'll massively increase the amount of stress, cortisol in your body. And this is definitely linked to back pain. Another big factor is, are you doing any form of strength training in the gym? A lot of people aren't, and effective strength training for that matter. So at least 2 to 3 sessions a week in the gym. The next one, are you getting in 5 to 10,000 steps in a day? He definitely is, because he works on a small holding and he's fairly active. He's on his feet all day, so that isn't an issue. And the next one is, are you just generally more stressed in your day-to-day life? That can also be a big factor. So, for example, have you recently moved? I don't know. Have you changed jobs? Is your boss being a bit of a dick? Any of those things can affect your back pain. The next thing you want to look at is just getting the back moving. So again, this exercise is all over my YouTube and Instagram, but you're going to lie on your back, knees are bent, feet are flat on the floor. And what I want you to think about doing is slowly arching your lower back off the floor. And as you arch your lower back off the floor, your hips or your pelvis will kind of dump forward. And then as you roll your hips and pelvis back, your lower back will be flat into the floor. And you're just going to go through this gentle movement. If you get pain in any of the end range positions, so if you fully arch, you're getting a lot of pain, or if you fully tuck and your lower back is flat to the floor and you get a lot of pain, then just decrease the amount of movement. That's one of the easiest ways to fix that. And you can just do like 2 to 3 sets of anywhere from 5 to 8 breaths. That's a really nice way to get the back moving. And then apart from that, I can't explain anything else on stream without exercises in front of me, because it requires quite a lot of cueing in detail. A few other things to look at is your limiting beliefs around back pain. So potentially you think having a good or bad, like a good posture is important, and you think particular postures or positions are bad. If that's the case, then you need to know that no posture or position is bad. And if you're active, like this person is, then it's just about changing your posture and position frequently. And what was really interesting with this guy that I saw in person is that he'd done Pilates previously, and in every single exercise that he did, he didn't want to arch his back. So he'd always have his pelvis tucked and his lower back was very, very flat, even in a standing position. And because of this, every time he goes around the caravan site and every time he goes into the small holding and, I don't know, is mending fences, is getting eggs from the chickens, he's constantly tucked all the time. And so he never accesses that arch position. So I just explained to him that the arch position isn't a bad position. You're just getting pain with it because you haven't trained that position and you're not used to it at all. And that little thing will help him massively because realistically, if someone only does the exercises that I give them or a physio gives them, which is only going to be 2 or 3 times a week for 15 or 20 minutes, that's not going to have as big of an impact as if you change the way they think about doing things for the other, 23 hours of the day. Another thing with back pain is making sure, just thinking on this one. Also making sure it's not linked to any previous injuries. That's what I was going to say. So potentially, if you're getting back pain on one side, this can be a big thing. So if you're getting like left-sided lower back pain or right-sided lower back pain, in this case, this guy was getting right-sided lower back pain and he had loads of previous lower body injuries on that side. So that whole side stemming from his back all the way down to his legs was incredibly weak. So that's also something to assess and look at in your head. Another thing I just remembered about back pain as well is that you don't expect to be fixed in one session. So this guy, like a lot of people, have been dealing with back pain for months, if not years. And so realistically, you're not going to see any improvement, significant improvement for maybe a few weeks or a few months. It's not going to be a quick fix where you just come in and I adjust your back. Next question, because I've been rambling a bit, is a mobility one. Struggling with tight hips. Do I need to do stretching daily to improve my squat mobility? So the first question would be, why do you need to improve your squat mobility? Do you need it for like the activity or sport you do? So if that's like CrossFit, weightlifting, then potentially you do need to be able to access a deep squat. The easiest way to improve squat mobility is the simplest way. A lot of people are doing loads of fancy, complicated hip stretches. All you need to do is get a thin plate, bumper plate, or 2 smaller fractional ones, or more ideally like a slant board to elevate your heels. If you can elevate your heels, this will allow you to get more artificial dorsiflexion. All dorsiflexion is that movement where your knee is going over your toe. And that heel elevation will allow you to sit into the bottom of a squat with a very upright position, very comfortably. And you can use as much heel elevation as you need to initially to be nice and comfy. Let your knees travel over your toes and just sit nice and upright. Work with this amount of heel elevation at least 1 to 2 times a week. Load it heavy, just like you would with your normal squats. And then every week or every other week, just decrease the amount of heel elevation you're using by half an inch. And then before you know it, you'll be down squatting on the floor with that dorsiflexion, with your knees over your toes, and you'll be in that upright position. So it's just a case of teaching your body to access more and more ranges, deeper and deeper position in that squat, very, very gradually. So your hips, your ankles, everything adapts to it. Another key thing when you're looking to improve squat mobility here, like I've alluded to with the heel elevation, it might not be your hips. It could be your ankles. More than likely, it's ankles for a lot of people. So just be aware of that as well. Another thing that people accuse with squats is knees out. They push their knees out all the time. This can be it's a bit of a rubbish cue. A lot of people in their anatomy will suit having your knees, just letting your knees cave in a bit and actually letting your knees come towards each other. And this can help a lot of people with squat depth, mobility, and knee health as well. Okay, one more question. Final one. Elbow pain from bench pressing. Any suggestions? So I don't know any more details about that. First thing is, again, a volume thing. Are you doing a lot more bench pressing than you were previously? Have you increased the volume massively in a short space of time? The next thing is, are you doing any accessory work for your triceps and biceps specifically? because that all ties into the elbow. So a lot of people will just do heavy bench presses with a barbell, and then they won't do any accessory work. And if I were you, I would be doing bench pressing and then something like a pull variation for your back, chin-ups, single arm row, something along those lines. On top of that, I would be doing some isolated work for your triceps, like a cable tricep push down like that, a skull crusher where you're lying on your back and then you're extending like that. And the golden rule here is if you can do these tricep accessories with minimal to no pain, so like a 0 to 3 out of 10, if 10 is the worst pain imaginable, 0 is no pain, this will help sort the issue in a lot of cases. And if you can't do it with a low rep range, just start off doing 2 to 3 sets of 15 to 20 reps and then decrease the amount of reps over time. Another thing that can really help elbow pain is just some extra grip work as well. So if you've got any dumbbells where you can put a fat pad on, and all a fat pad is like it's an extra thick layer around the handle, so you've almost gripping like that instead of like that, and simply just holding those in your hands, doing sets of 30 to 60 seconds. Another thing you can do is if you've got any of those grip strengthener things, which are like they go into your hand and you just squeeze them a few times, that can be quite good as well. I would only do the grip work 2 or 3 times a week on top of what you're already doing, and that should clear up a lot of issues at the elbow. And the other thing just to kind of look at is how often are you bench pressing per week? Because I would recommend, even for powerlifters, I wouldn't really recommend benching more than once or twice a week, to be completely honest. And then if you do that and then if you're bench pressing too much, swap that out for a vertical press, like a seated strict press, a military press, whatever you want to call it, something like that, or you're actually getting your shoulders moving in a different kind of plane of motion. That can help a lot as well with elbow pain. So that is all the questions. I'm going to go. If you want 33 days of free injury advice that's going to revolutionize the way you think about fixing your injury and pain in general, just check out the top link down below. But yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care.